This is Lisa Tucker, host of The Book Cover, which showcases local literary personalities. So listen to The Book Cover on the borderline. And remember, don't judge a book by its cover. Hi, welcome to The Book Cover. This is Lisa Tucker, and with me today is author FAWN JACKO. Welcome, FAWN.
Hello, Lisa. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So this is your first time on the show.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about your first book. Hopefully there'll be many more. Your first book is called Memoir of a Sky Warrior. So I wanted to ask you first, the title suggests that it's nonfiction or a real story. But in reading the summary, I haven't read it yet, but I do want to. In reading the summary, it seems a little like fantasy. How would you categorize your book?
I speak about my culture. I speak my spirit name is in the title. My spirit name is Sky Woman. So I talk about my culture as an Indigenous person in Canada and what I see, my insights, and I think it's a true story. That's why I wrote about it, because I didn't want to forget about it, and I wanted to leave a story behind that has connections to who I am as an Indigenous person.
Right. And in my experience interviewing people, the Indigenous culture is hugely heavy on storytelling.
Yes, I've been told that we usually do storytelling in the winter time.
Yeah.
Winter time's a good time to tell stories.
Right, and about the past, and some of the stories might seem fantasy-like, but because they're told generation to generation, they're real to you. These are real.
Yeah. I grew up on a bunch of stories from my grandmother telling me stories of what her mother saw when she was a little girl, and she passed on some stories to me, and I believe they're true.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they're very cultural. It seems like this book is very heavy into the culture, your culture, telling stories and bringing that and chronicling, almost like putting it down on paper and keeping it like as a legacy.
Yeah, yes, that's what I wanted to do. It was my, like, I worked so hard on writing it. I spent years on writing it. I was like, this is my masterpiece. It has to be my story of survival. So I wanted to. So
you've been writing it for many years. We talked about that a little bit before. Why did it take so long? What are some of the barriers or the hurdles that you ran into over writing it? Because you said 2013 you said you started, or 16?
Yeah, late December 2013.
That's when you started.
When I started writing it. I was inspired to write it after surviving a lightning strike, and I needed to write it down. And
so that is true. You were struck by lightning.
Yes, I never really saw proper medical attention, but I have fertility issues now. I have anxiety issues, major anxiety issues. It was a lot severe earlier stages, but a sweat lodge saved my life.
Really? Okay, tell me about that. I know a little bit about sweat lodges, but I want tell me about that.
Well, when I was struck by lightning in October 2013, I had electric currents in my body for 2 weeks, and I couldn't talk about it to anybody. And I remember as soon as I got struck by lightning at my mother's house, I went up in the hallway and I told my mom, somebody hexed me. And she was all like, what are you talking about? And I couldn't talk about it because I had so much fear of the currents in my body gonna slice my body, or somehow I was scared to sleep. And it was and
you didn't seek any medical attention?
I went in. I've been in and out of the psychiatric hospital, misdiagnosed with a bunch of different mental disorders. But after 2 weeks, of the lightning strike was when I went to the sweat lodge.
Right.
And it released the currents from my body.
Right. And you know what? You don't think about the long-lasting effects of something that significant. Like, you think, okay, you get struck by lightning, there's the immediate issues and the immediate injuries, but you don't, like, when I think about being struck by lightning, I don't think of something that lasts in your body for so long. So that's interesting to hear.
Yeah. After the 2 weeks of being struck by lightning and after the sweat lodge, I had severe anxiety for a week. My mom took me in and out of to the hospital to get checked for my anxiety, but I didn't have the patience to sit and wait to see a doctor until the end of the week. The doctor finally saw me right away, and I said something about how thunderbirds make snow and wind. It was just like an epiphany I had.
Wow.
But because of the stress and the anxiety, I could have just been, trying to relax my mind.
Right. And how old were you when this happened?
I was 21.
Okay. And you were outside, obviously, at your mom's place.
I was inside a house when it happened.
You were inside a home?
Yes. So
where did the lightning come from? Like a window?
I think it came from the bottom. Like, if I think about what happened was it was blue lightning, and I got lifted in the air, and I had a solid vision with the moon and a bunch of women's bodies inside the moon, and it even said the word evil.
Wow.
So it was like a solid vision I had.
And that's why you thought you were cursed or hexed.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It was like I didn't know what to think, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
and was your community was your community supportive? When you started telling them about, like, obviously you feel like you saw a vision, and like this was obviously a significant life event that happened to you. And was your community supportive of the fact that, yes, you saw a vision, yes, let's discuss this?
I went to a couple different for the past 10 years, I've been going to see a bunch of different medicine healers in different territories, trying to seek some kind of understanding. I did have a community member tell me at a sweat lodge on the reserve that when I got struck by lightning, it means that there were gifts.
Okay, but you don't see it as a gift.
Despite what I went through, I think I went through a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In and out, my anxiety, and everyone thought I was, going insane.
Yeah.
And going in, and I couldn't, for a long time, I didn't talk about it with my psychiatrist at Health Science North. My mom told me I couldn't talk to the doctors about it because they would
label
rule
you.
me insane.
Yeah.
And so when it happened, when the first time I got admitted into the psychiatric hospital at HSN in Sudbury, I had severe anxiety issues, and the doctor prescribed me a bunch of medications where I was so doped up and I couldn't barely open up my eyes. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I remember that day clearly of when my mom and my grandma came and sat with me with the doctor, and I couldn't open my eyes.
And so young. You were so young.
Yeah, I had a promising future,
Yeah.
My education got put on hold. I had a job offer to do designing with a leather design company, and it just, my life just got rocked and turned upside down.
Yeah.
So,
wow. And you know what? I see this story, believe it or not, your story of family members telling you not to say anything because people might think you're insane. Yeah. It's not unique. I'll tell you that we do have a woman that does a podcast on the borderline, and at the age of 5, she had open heart surgery, and she died. And she came back knowing that we have a council of guardian angels. And when she would speak to her parents about this, they told her, don't tell anybody. Don't say anything to anybody because people are going to think you're insane. So it's not, believe it or not, this happens. It's not just, an Indigenous thing where families will say, hey, don't tell anybody, blah, blah, blah. Because this woman is Italian. She came from an Italian Roman Catholic family, and they're telling her, don't say anything. So it's a very similar story. Now, after going through what it was told to you that it was a gift. Do you still have visions? Like, did you have visions before the lightning strike? And then what kind of things are happening since the lightning strike that changed your whole, other than the mental health issues and that, do you have a similar story where you understand sort of the afterlife a little bit better? Or,
well, I did have my own afterlife experience. Like, after I got struck by lightning, I did, have some few good friends who were there to support me, to talk to. And, he talked to different people. He talked to somebody and said that, I must have died when I got struck by lightning, and it kept me alive along that lines. And when I saw the afterlife, well, what I see is that I was wearing all white with feathers, and I went up into the clouds, and I could see the morning sun and, the pink, orange. That's what I saw, but no one was there.
Right.
No, I didn't see nobody. I didn't talk to nobody, but that's what I saw.
Yeah, but that makes sense because your Indigenous name is Sky Warrior.
Sky Woman.
Sky Woman.
Yeah.
So isn't that, it can't be a coincidence that that's what you saw.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can't be a coincidence. So in your naming, when did you have your naming ceremony?
I got it when I was 16.
Okay.
Through shaking tent ceremony by an elder from Whitefish Bay First Nation up north near Kenora area.
Yeah.
He came to my reserve to do shaking tent ceremony, and that was I was the last one to receive her name, clan, and colors, and I looked up to him as a guidance spiritual advisor. Every time he came back to the reserve, I would go meet up with him and get teachings from him. And when I got my name, I was the last one. I was only 16. And I remember grabbing my hand, putting my hand around the branch, and it's like a little lodge with bells and cedar on top, and it moves drastically with the man inside in the tent.
Yeah.
And that was probably the second time I have ever really saw like a magic experience, was because when there's the conductor, the healer inside the shaking tent, he has a drummer assistant on the outside singing songs. And when he was drumming with his drum and hand drum, his hand drum and stick, the stick went on fire.
Wow.
And there was many people in this kind of like a round dance kind of building.
And they were all there to witness that. Yeah.
And I talked to the conductor, the traditional healer, after after the ceremony, and he told me more about what my name meant, and he told me how I could get my gifts, and he said that the hand stick going on fire meant that it was a song from the Creator. So
it's obvious to me how all this stuff is connected. Sky Woman, the stick goes on fire, you're hit by lightning from the sky. Right?
When I got struck by lightning, I felt like it was I don't
I'm sure it's hard to explain because
Yeah.
it's nothing like anybody's ever experienced. You know?
Yeah, I had a solid vision, and I can't just go tell people about it because people will say stuff like, oh, if you got struck by lightning, you'd be in pieces, just like
No,
if a
that's not
cow
true.
got struck
No,
by
that's
lightning,
not true.
But
No.
I've met other survivors throughout the 10 years.
Okay, so you're in touch with other survivors, and are their stories? Do you see a similarity with yours?
I never really got into touch. The first, like, my uncle, who's not here anymore, his brother was struck by lightning. It's not really known, but I wrote about him in his book and how he collects rainwater for his prayers when it rains. And it's just therapeutic for him and healing for what he went through. But I needed somebody to talk to. I needed somebody to understand. And he was a community member from my reserve. So
Yeah. So that the healer or the I'm not sure what you call him, the man who did the ceremony for your naming ceremony. Have you been in touch with him since the lightning strike?
no,
that would be.
I have actually been a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago. I've been trying to contact him.
Yeah, that would be interesting to hear what he has to say or how he interprets it.
I tried to contact his band office and tell him I tried to call.
Yeah.
And
Keep on trying, because I would be really curious if I were you, to see what he has to say about this.
Yeah.
Knowing and being there firsthand when, this whole phenomenon happened at your naming ceremony with the shaking tent. And
I do my best to reach out to the healers, traditional people who can communicate with the other side, who get messages, and because there's only a few people out there who could, truly make you a believer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who could, know things without you even knowing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and you know what? I'm sorry that that you didn't feel like you could talk about this stuff, because there's not enough people, I don't think, that have the open mind. Not everything has to be seen and proven. You know what I mean? Like this fascinates me. I love this because I believe there are things in this world that we have no idea about. We don't even understand that we don't understand it because we don't know about it. You know what I mean? That sounds a little weird, but and that makes me sad to think that, as well as this other woman that does, she's a medium now, like I said, she, and when she was a child, her family members told her, don't say anything. But this is a gift now, sometimes a curse, but a gift. And, as well as your situation, maybe you went through this so you can write books and so other people who have gone through maybe not the exact same thing, but gone through other barriers and other hurdles can relate. Do you believe that?
That's why I wanted to write my story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To let people know you're not alone, or to have somebody who went through what I did to have something to fall back on,
Yep.
Oh, maybe what I went through that wasn't as bad as hers. Like, I met a couple survivors this past summer. They were sisters, and this happened years ago, and they got it lucky compared to me. This, like, I knew,
like, with residual long-lasting effects, they were lucky.
Yeah, and they got proper medical attention. You know what I mean? It was stated in their records that there were survivors of lightning, and in my records at HSN in Sudbury is probably just I knew I was going to be labeled because I took a year of psychology, and I even questioned my psychology teacher in college, like back like 11 years ago. Because I was reading my psychology book before class, and I I saw schizophrenia there, and I was like, okay. So I questioned my teacher at the beginning of class, are you just going to label all Native people schizophrenic? And she was all like, she was like, yes. So I knew like I was going to be labeled as an Indigenous person from that moment on.
That's, and that's why when I read the summary of your book, it interests me so much because there's so many aspects to it. First of all, there is the cultural teachings. It talks about, you talk about you being the sky woman or the sky warrior, and then the mental health portion of it as well. I don't think there's enough. Still, we're getting better talking about mental health, but I don't think there's still enough out there. Like I'm a big reader. Now, if I wanted to read a book about, someone who went through a trying time with mental health, and, there's not a whole lot out there. Now, and then if you add the other layer on, if I was looking for specifically Indigenous or cultural books dealing with mental health, you're probably few and far between when it comes to those topics. So I that's why I thought it was so interesting, like all the different parts of your book, like all the aspects of it.
Yes, I had my I was such a I was a social butterfly growing up. I had like almost 4,000 friends on social media before my Facebook got hacked, and I knew people all over the country, and my life just, I just turned into a completely different person. Like, wow. I'm still healing from it. Like, it's been 10 years going in and out of being admitted into the psychiatric hospital. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I decided to leave my reserve specifically because of that.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have much advocates on my reserve for my mental health. You know what I mean?
That's too bad. That's terrible. Yeah. Maybe that's why, I always look for reasons why. Maybe that's why this happened to you. Maybe you are, in the future, maybe you will help somebody else that is having issues. Maybe you're going to help lots of people that have issues, who are living on reserves, that have mental health issues, and
Yeah. I thought about being a drugs and alcohol counselor, and I don't know if I'm an empath, so
it's tough.
Mental health is a big issue today everywhere. It's not just on the reserve, but in the cities and the streets, and it's a big issue, and
absolutely
something definitely needs to happen for mental health everywhere.
Absolutely. That's at the root of our opiate epidemic right now. People are trying to self-medicate. Why did they take the first drug when they took it? It's because they were looking for some kind of relief from suffering, and it's at the base of everything. It's at the base of alcoholism. It's at the base of drug addiction. That mental health, you're trying to soften the deep thinking or the pain, or you know what I mean? That's at the base of everything. But being an empath, it's painful for you.
Yeah, just to see it, you know. It's just...
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one for sure.
I was almost self-medicating myself with alcohol. Mm-hmm. And I was only into it for a couple months, like a month and a half maybe, and I was like, okay.
You caught yourself?
I was never into it. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this every week. Every 2 weeks, I can't even do this, you know?
Yeah. Well, good for you. Like, that's, to have that self-awareness, to catch yourself and say, wait, this is not a path I want to go down.
Yeah, I wanted to, it's so common, and absolutely. it's really hard to get out when you're not even in it, because it's everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So before we started talking, you mentioned a little bit some of the troubles you've had publishing your book. So tell me a little bit about that, because I know there are lots of authors that listen to the show, so they can either relate or watch out for anything that you're talking about. So go ahead and tell me some of that.
I had an editor through this program. She did the editing and writing for a quarterly piece for a program at NISA in Sudbury.
Mm-hmm.
And she worked with me on editing my book and helped me with my writing and just things to watch out for, like repetitive writing.
Sure.
And so
the technical part, like run-on sentences and structure. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
But this, now we talked and I asked you, it was a non-Indigenous editor.
She took out some stuff that kind of, changed the whole storyline, like I wish I kind of didn't change that kind of thing. If I knew I was going to be self-publishing at the beginning of it, and if it was there and if I had a little bit more knowledge about it, I probably wouldn't have got an editor. But I'm glad that she taught me a lot about Canadian writing.
Yeah, for sure.
The difference between U.S. writing and Canadian writing.
Yeah.
Like I learned a lot from her.
Yeah.
But just how she kind of took some stuff out of my book.
Yeah,
and
she didn't
restructured it.
She probably didn't see some of your stories as important, but culturally to you they are important.
Yeah.
To the book, to your life, to your journey, to all of that stuff.
Just my voice, what
yes.
I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it changed my whole voice in the whole book, and that's what kind of big. And publishing, I reached out to different publishers in the US and Canada, and I was struggling myself to come up with the funds. I had offers to, people to kind of sponsor me kind of thing, and they get like part of the royalties, but I'm like, okay, but this is my life's work, this is my master's piece, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that because this is who I am, this is me. And so I said no to traditional publishing. And I was in school and I was goal setting, and I did research for publishing my book, and I came across self-publishing on Amazon, and I was like, okay, I'm tired of this sitting on the shelf for 4 months now. And I'm like, okay, it's time to put it out there so people could read it. And when I published it, I looked at the reports and I was like so excited because people were actually buying my book.
Isn't that great? Like that must make you, and to go back when you publish, when you put it out there, as a sort of trying to be a writer myself, that is the most vulnerable position that you can ever be in, is you're putting yourself out there, right? It's scary. Yeah. Right? It was probably hard for you to take the button and say, okay, publish. Like it probably was terrifying.
It was kind of like relief to you.
Right.
But like, oh my God, I finally done with this phase of my life. You know, I've been working on this for years, and I'm like finally getting it out there. And it was nervous. And
I bet.
And I'm still kind of nervous about the whole situation, but.
Well, we were talking again before we started recording about Tagona Press. They are our local publishing house. They are connected with Dundurn Press in Toronto for international distributing. So, you know what? Take what you've learned, maybe bring it to them. And because they're not giant, like
Brian's already read my book.
And tell me, what did he say?
He thinks I'm fearless.
You know what? And he's so honest. He will tell you.
I'm excited to meet him.
He's crazy. Now, when I say he's crazy, I mean his energy is like through the roof. He is like the Energizer Bunny. So if people don't know who we're talking about, it's Brian Davey. He's nuts. He runs Tagona Press, and he's such a champion for the North and Northern Ontario and Northern Ontario writers, that I think you'll be in good hands with him. I really do.
I'm excited for that next step. You know,
Yeah.
like the whole self-publishing thing was a step to get to
Absolutely.
Gona Press.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm glad to be back in Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good. I'm glad. So now, if people were looking to buy your book, where can they get it?
I would say wait for it to Gona Press, or
Okay.
I would say to wait for it to be republished, because
Okay.
it's going to have more illustrations, more pictures,
Okay.
and a book cover
Okay.
that's more to
Okay.
the story.
Yeah, because the book cover is very just.
It's just something just a format I got off Amazon.
Yeah,
and
yeah. It doesn't really tell you anything about the book.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
in school at the time at Niagara College, and I just did whatever I could at the fastest way I could.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Okay. So I will be looking for Memoir of a Sky Warrior to be published through Gona Press. When it is published, I will make sure I put it on all of the book cover social media so people can get your book. I'm excited. I'd like to read it. I can't wait till it comes out because I'd really like to read it. And you know what? Thank you so much for being on the show. I love meeting people with unique stories, and yours is definitely a unique story. So thank you so much.
I hope you like my book and you see something.
I already do. I read the summary. I'm like, wow, I got to read this book. It really.
It's a true story.
Yeah, and it's your story.
Well, there's little quirks in there, like about when I mentioned about being in Garden River, and like I was like whose house I was at. That wasn't really true, but that's probably the non-true part in the book.
You're allowed
I
to.
just fixed it to kind of line up with the story.
Sure.
Yeah.
Poetic license, it's called. You can do whatever the heck you want. Anyway, thank you for that, FAWN JACKO. It's hard to say when I'm saying it. FAWN JACKO. Writer, Indigenous Sky Woman. I love it. Look for her book when you can. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. And you have been listening to The Book Cover. I'm Lisa Tucker, and you're listening on The Borderline. And remember, don't judge a book by its cover.
Ani, hello. My name is FAWN JACKO, and I'm here at Borderline Sioux Radio doing my book cover. I'm author of Memoir of a Sky Warrior, and I would love you to read my book. Stay tuned.